In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of demand, specifically the difference between demand and quantity demand. It's an important concept to understand, especially to the operation of how markets operate. Difficult to use the supply and demand model without grasping this concept. So that's going to be the purpose of this first video. If you look at your textbook, the definition of demand here is listed. The quantity consumers are both willing and able to purchase at possible prices during a set time period. And this is important, understanding that this is a given window of a day, of a week, of a month, of a year. But demand is a relationship that consumers have with goods and services, and we assume that that relationship does not change until it does change. And I'll try to explain what that means here. So one thing I want you to keep in the back of your mind is this idea that demand is a relationship that consumers have, that all of us have with goods and services. We all have individual relationships with different goods and services, how we feel about them, our tastes, our preferences, the amount of income that we have as an individual, what our expectations are of this good or service. We all have these different types of relationships, and we use this idea of a demand curve to illustrate this relationship. So real quick, looking at this is in your textbook, I think page 53. This is a demand schedule and demand curve, or you could just say a demand relationship for pizza. This is a market demand curve, so we're talking about in a particular area all of the consumers that would have demand for pizza. In order to have demand, if you look back at the definition, you have to have both willingness and ability. It's over a specific period of time, and we're holding everything else constant. So we're assuming nothing else is changing. Our income is staying the same, our tastes and preferences are staying the same, our expectations, nothing is changing. We're taking a photograph, a picture of consumers' demand, and that is all that we are looking at, this relationship between price and quantity. So if you look at this relationship here, at a price of $15, consumers are going to buy 8 million pizzas. Maybe this is for Domino's Pizza in some state, for instance. You're talking about a huge market of people, millions of people, and at $15, they're going to sell 8 million pizzas in a week. At $12, 14 million pizzas. At $9, 20 million, and so on down the line. And you can see here that this is an inverse relationship, right? It's a downward sloping negative slope. As prices rise, we go from 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12. We're seeing that quantity then come back at each price level until ultimately you'd get to a price, $20, $22, whatever it might be, where there is going to be no demand. No consumer is going to be willing to spend that money, that amount of money to purchase pizza. So what's important here to understand when we talked about the difference of demand versus quantity demanded is the quantity demanded, okay, is one point on this curve. Demand is the entire curve. So you think of demand as the overall relationship, how we as consumers are going to respond at all different price levels. The quantity demanded is just a single point on this curve, and it's reflected by this idea of the law of demand. This is that inverse relationship. It's called the law of demand for a reason. It always holds true. So the quantity demanded varies inversely with the price. So as prices rise, the quantity demanded will decrease. As prices fall, the quantity demanded will increase. Okay? Inverse relationship. Price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, and vice versa. So you look here, quantity demanded is reflected by one price point in the curve that we draw then. So at a price of $12.50, we could come over here, hit the curve, and it would be somewhere, that'd be 10, 11, somewhere between 8 and 14. Any price between $15 and $3, we can come over and find what the corresponding quantity would be. Now, the only thing that is going to change quantity demanded is a change in price. We're assuming nothing else will change. The price changes, prices change, this curve does not move. The relationship doesn't change. How we feel about pizza doesn't change. It hasn't changed our income. Nothing has changed, only the price. We're just going to move on this relationship to a different point, and that's important to understand. So when I say price increases, we're going to say the quantity demanded is going to decrease, not demand. Okay? The curve doesn't move. The curve doesn't change. The curve stays consistent. Only we're going to see movement along the curve. Okay? It's an important key to understand. If you look at your notes, I have kind of outlined that here. Demand, it's the entire relationship. It's the entire curve. Demand is the curve. Quantity demanded is one point on that demand curve. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense in how we are going to kind of read this demand curve, which we'll get to here in further lessons. All right, thank you.